As seen yesterday, I've decided to start the practice of a day card. Now, I can't promise a video on the day card every day, especially since on my work days, I work early, and I don't always have time in the afternoons to do something like this. But you will do very well to check out, and I have the links or the names in all of my posts. Check out the Facebook group, join that, and follow me on Instagram so you can see these on a daily basis. Today we have the Six of Swords. Now, I like the Six of Swords. It always makes me feel like a challenge. The Six of Swords, Aleister Crowley's deck, the Thoth deck, associates with the word science. Now, if we think about science, science represents a process of gaining knowledge, of gaining experience through trial and error, and gleaning information for going forward through a series of successes and failures, or as I like to call them, successes and successful learning experiences. Let me get that more centered there. Sorry, folks. Sorry, my mysterious self-transformers. So, right off the bat, the Six of Swords establishes itself as a very intellectual card, as a very air element-oriented card, which we know holds true with the swords. But, as we also looked at yesterday, the cards come as greater than the sum of their parts. How did we arrive at the six? We have 5 other cards that come before it in the suit of the swords. Well, I'd like to draw attention to one thing before I get into those parts. We see swords here, but we see a representation of another important suit in the tarot, the pentagrams, and we have 4 of them. The suits work together. The tarot arguably functions as a whole. It just has 78 parts. Our body functions as a whole, though we have trillions of cells composing it. And if those go bad, we got trouble. They do work and function as individuals in their respective spheres and tasks, but they contribute to something far more, just like the parts of the tarot. So I find the creative aspect of the pentagrams, the one that permits us to change and analyze our own internal and external environments, of fitting background. Because if we hadn't already done some work in ourselves, we could not have arrived at the Six of Swords. You see, we've been through some things now, and we've arrived at a place and time where we can continue working on ourselves, but with greater insight, more solid processes, and a better overall context for those to take place in. So, what could have been part of that led us to the present? Well, since we have the 4 pentagrams, the number 4 seems significant. Oftentimes for me, and I did learn from yesterday. How do you like that? I didn't have to go looking for the cards. I've already done that part for you guys. So, thank you for your patience yesterday. And if you haven't watched yesterday's video, go ahead and do that too. You might enjoy it, and you might find it interesting and helpful. Now, as for the Four of Swords, oftentimes I find my greatest urge to move forward and to transform when I've gotten comfortable. The fours make me think of the foundation of a house. It stands solid. It stands steady and firm. It has four corners, after all. It's been after I've gotten comfortable and done some introspective thinking, after I've done some gestation, that I realize and have a burst of realization that, damn it, I have more potential than this. And while, yes, I feel comfortable right now, I don't want this forever. I need to move forward. I love the Two of Swords in the Black Flame Tarot. It calls to mind one of the great science fiction and philosophical movies ever, 2001: Space Odyssey, where we have the monolith. For those familiar with the movie, let me segue for a moment. Let me take a detour. Weren't the two races of apes relatively comfortable? I mean, they struggled, but they were familiar with their existence, and they were surviving just fine. But only after the monolith appeared, kind of like when we sit comfortably, even in a not-so-good situation, and we have that realization, only after the monolith appeared and gave them some insight and some abilities and some awareness and consciousness beyond nature, like a blue rose, did they move forward and propel themselves. And then, of course, for those who've seen the film, we know that we make a many, many, many thousands of years jump from the Stone Age to the Space Age. And that was full of trial and error. Think of history. Think of your own history, okay? Think of your own history and what's led you here. What can you learn from it? How can you apply that to the future? You don't have to keep going in circles. You can move forward. Now, another combination that leads us to 6, and I won't take a whole lot of time here because we've already gotten close to 10 minutes, and I like to keep these relatively short for you. We don't want to spend all day talking about the day card after all. We've got the 5, where we've moved out of this comfort zone. We've got the 5, which has some motivation, but boy, when we add that potential, then we see the explosive energy. Science has never been a very calm field. Discovery after discovery gets made, and we keep moving forward. The same should hold true with our experiments with self as we work to know ourselves better and to see what works in our own little science of self. So throughout the day, think about that card and see, have there been instances that you could learn from and that you can put toward a better understanding of yourself, maybe note those so that you can refer back to that. Have there been failures, or again, as I like to call them, successful learning experiences? Note those too. Turn it into a positive. Maybe you want to try that as your experiment. Repurposing the difficult and the challenging and the obstacles as opportunities to show how something meant so much to you. Make an experiment, perhaps, of how just looking at things a little differently can change how it works for you. As always, please subscribe for additional updates and follow me on Facebook and Instagram for even more regular updates. Should you have thoughts, questions, suggestions? Would you like to see a different tarot deck used occasionally? Which one? I love discussion, so please use that comment field as it was intended. Let me know what you think. And until next time, folks, keep transforming.